Welcome to Dharma Talk. My name, of course, is Matthew Sokolov. If you're new to Dharma Talk, then welcome. I'm glad you're here and listening. If you're not new and you watch on YouTube, then you may notice we have a whole new setup going on here. And this is courtesy of Elizabeth and her job, and she set it up for me. And if you're listening on the podcast, then you don't see me at all, and I probably sound the same. Either way, welcome. Just a few little announcements. You can always subscribe at oneminddharma.com/talk. That has the links for Spotify and iTunes, Google Play. You can subscribe, of course, via email or on YouTube, and all of the information, as well as if you have a topic that you want me to cover, you can reach me there. I talk about the online group quite frequently at class.oneminddharma.com. It's a donation-based online meditation group with a guided meditation and a short topic and time for discussion. And we meet every Wednesday night at 4 p.m. Pacific time. But we're actually thinking about adding another group as this Wednesday group grows. And there's some need or desire for a group another day of the week. So if you're interested in that, please email me at matthew@oneminddharma.com and let me know a day or time that would work for you, as I'm trying to get an idea of what times would work for people and what would work best. The last thing I want to say is we've completely revamped our membership system and kind of how we're driving support for One Mind Dharma. And all of the numbers are on there. But many people and listeners don't realize that One Mind Dharma really isn't profitable. It doesn't make any money. We're supported by the generosity of many different contributors and benefactors. And there's also a lot of costs, like the hosting just for the podcasts runs about $150 a month. The MailChimp to send the daily emails and our guided meditation podcast goes out to like 7,000 people. That costs about $100 a month. So that's up to about $250 a month just right there. And all these little things keep adding up, and that's where the money goes. So we've created a new system to be really transparent with it through Patreon. You can visit oneminddharma.com/donate or patreon.com/oneminddharma. But the idea is you can pledge a set amount, so either $5 a month, there's a $10 a month option, I think a $15 and $20 and a $30, and at each level you get some different kind of benefit or perk. So $5 a month members get unlimited access to all of our meditation collections, including new ones that are released. $10 a month members get that and access to our daily guided meditation emails. At $20 and $30 you get other things like access to the course or a One Mind Dharma t-shirt of your choosing. And this is one of the ways we're really trying to drive engagement and help One Mind Dharma reach its goal of one day being profitable. One of the reasons we're shouting this out now is I have the new Introduction to Buddhism course just about wrapped up. And anybody that signs up in the month of June, is that right? Yeah. I don't know what month it is. Anyone that signs up in the month of June is going to get access to this course that I've spent a couple months now working on, researching, editing, recording, preparing. It has hours and hours and I think 40 or 50 video lessons going through quite a bit about the Buddhist history, Buddhist teachings, and then how to actually meditate and bring it into what it means to bring into our life. So that any member at any level gets that right now. So again, the link for that is oneminddharma.com/donate, or you can just head straight to patreon.com/oneminddharma. We're trying to reach our goal of having the podcast and daily inspirational emails support themselves. Right now, these things go out to about 30,000 people, yet we have 6 patrons. So it would be really great to see this grow, and we're trying to do that by offering some incentives. So enough with that. Today, and I apologize, I don't love taking so long begging for money or plugging our own things. But it is something necessary to help keep One Mind Dharma a viable option and not spending our own money on it, because that's how we've done it for the last 5 years. Today I want to talk about building resources. And this is a topic that I think can fall out of the Dharma conversation or the Buddhist conversation sometimes. There's so many teachings in the Dharma and so many suttas and so many kind of resources really that we tend to focus on Dharma and not think about things that maybe come from outside sources. This idea of internal and external resources certainly comes from more of a clinical aspect. So what do I mean? The idea is that we have resources, things that offer us something, both internally and externally. Now we all know what those words internal and external mean, but we have resources, the idea being we have resources within ourselves, things we can turn toward within ourselves, and things that are external or outside of ourselves. And we'll talk about what some of these things are and what they aren't and how they can support us. But overall, they come together to offer us something, to support us and support our practice and our well-being in some way. Maybe they give us help us cultivate compassion, or help us be more mindful, or help us develop insight or concentration, or give us a sense of safety, perhaps. So I want to start with internal resources. I want to start with internal resources. And these are resources that are within us. And we all have them. This was one of the kind of radical teachings of the Buddha at the time, was that we all have this seed of nobility within us. The Buddha seed, as it's often called, or the seed of awakening. That we all have this power and potential to liberate ourselves, already resting within us. So some of these resources that are internal could include mindfulness, compassion, empathy, patience, forgiveness, perhaps, determination or discipline. They're definitely like traditional internal resources as far as Dharma is concerned. Mindfulness, compassion, metta or loving kindness, insight and concentration. There's also kind of non-traditional, non-Buddhist internal resources we can find, like things you might learn from a therapist or in a 12-step group or in a self-help book or something. Things like learning how to set healthy boundaries or building healthy coping mechanisms for when times are stressful, or learning how to be accountable and responsible, accountable when we make a mistake. That these are all things that we do internally and can turn toward, and are resources that support us. And as you can see, these, those last few I mentioned, aren't strictly from the Dharma, like the Buddha didn't directly teach about these. But they're no different than, mindfulness or compassion and how they can support us. So these resources that are within us take some effort to cultivate. It's not just, we have them and therefore we can just turn toward them whenever we want. Sometimes, and we've unfortunately all had this experience where we go to reach for something like compassion and it's just not there. Or maybe we really want to care about something, but the heart's just not in it. Or maybe we're meditating and we want to be collected in the mind, but the mind's doing its own thing. So it takes some effort or energy to cultivate these inner resources, both to grow them and build them up, to water those seeds, and to know how to access them, I think. To know when it's time to turn towards compassion, or to know when it's time to set a healthy boundary, or when it's time to bite your tongue and not say anything at all. That we need to both cultivate them to the point that they're present and accessible, and know how to access them when the time is right. This is often done through meditation practice or some kind of dedicated effort. In mindfulness practice, for example, we cultivate this ability to see clearly and to be present, and it makes it more accessible in in daily life or in life off the cushion. Another thing we can do, just as we do with what the Buddha talked about with wise effort, is to think of the 4 wise efforts, to notice when one of these resources has arisen. So notice when we are having compassion and try to keep it there, not clinging, but encourage it. To know what leads to the arising of compassion and try to do that. To know when compassion is not present, maybe we're in ill will, and ill will is rising up, and to know how to kind of leave that be and push it back down to a seed, and to know how to not water the seed in the first place of compassion. So think of these 4 efforts: to know when something's come up, to know how to bring it up, to know how to kind of let go of unwholesome or unhealthy states, and to keep those unhealthy states from arising, not watering the wrong seeds. So there's so much more that could be said about inner resources, but I'll leave that there, right? We have these set of kind of resources within ourselves that help us. Maybe I was talking to somebody else about this, a friend down here, about my talk, and they said, yeah, I have a quote that I read a long time ago, and I don't remember what the quote was, but I often return to it in my head. So maybe it's something like a mantra. I use and I have it tattooed on me. I don't know how to show it, but I see you, Mara, over here. I use that often when I'm struggling with a difficulty. It's an inner resource we have. So switching gears totally over to external resources, these are resources that aren't directly within us. They're outside of our own beingness, perhaps. And there are traditional ones in the Dharma as well. Maybe the most kind of obvious one being the Sangha, the community, the refuge or jewel of Sangha or community, right? That's something we obviously have to make effort, but that resource is without ourselves, is outside of ourselves. There's also a teacher. Maybe we have a connection with the teacher, and that's an outside resources. You could also consider the teachings, the Dharma, an outside or external resource. And of course, there are more kind of traditional external resources that go with that, like Dharma Talks. I listen to audio Dharma a lot from Gil Fronsdal, or Dharma Seed, or whatever it is. There's Dharma books, whatever book you read that's related to Dharma. And then there's the kind of non-traditional external resources. And this list, I'm not going to sit here and go through every possibility, but it could be another person, like a community, a self-help group, a family member or loved one. It could be somebody in a professional role, like a therapist or counselor, maybe a life coach. I do a lot of one-on-one mindfulness coaching, and that's one way that people connect with external resource. There's also things like maybe the gym or going running, or a book club or something. We can have these external resources that are totally non-traditional but support us nonetheless. And just like internal resources, when we look at these external resources, what we often find is they take energy and effort and some patience and maybe not meditation directly, but some practice. It takes practice to learn how to build friendships. It takes practice, not that we're good or bad at therapy, but it takes practice to find a good therapist, someone with whom we connect and can trust. And many of us don't have this opportunity or find this. But just like internal resources, just like mindfulness and compassion and concentration and all these kind of Dharma teachings, the external resources take some effort too. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today came from talking to Elizabeth, and we often compare, for those of you that don't know, Elizabeth, who does a lot of work with One Mind Dharma, also runs One Mind Therapy. She's a psychotherapist who sees people via video chat. And she's going through teacher training right now, Buddhist teacher training, and she has a strong understanding of Dharma, but she also comes from a kind of strong clinical background, and that's where she does a lot of her work. So a lot of times we compare or contrast, or not better or worse, but discuss the differences between Dharma and psychology, because they don't always come right in line. And one of them is that in Dharma practice, often the focus so much is on building inner resources. It's on this solo meditation, this closing our eyes and being by ourselves and cultivating this insight or this compassion or this loving kindness. And Elizabeth works a lot in the addiction recovery with people struggling with all kinds of addictions, drug and alcohol, or maybe more process addictions and behavioral addictions, eating disorders, of course. And she was noting that in many of these kind of treatment plans or modalities for addiction, a lot of the focus is on external resources, going to meetings, getting a sponsor, having the right job, being in the right relationship. And a lot of the focus is on external resources, and it's nice to encourage clients to bring in some internal resources as well. And that had me thinking that so much of the talk in Dharma is about building internal resources, that we can't forget this piece of external resources. I think of it like the two truths, this teaching in Buddhism, that there's conventional reality or conventional truth and ultimate truth. The conventional truth is that my name's Matthew, I'm sitting here recording this video probably hours or days before you're sitting there listening to it. That's conventional truth. The ultimate truth is that this is just a collection of atoms and electrons and neutrons, and just kind of floating around and forming somehow to make noises out of my vocal cords that have some meaning, that come through your computer, which I can't even touch how that works, and hit the atoms in your eardrums, and they vibrate and you understand them because of electrical firing in the brain. And there's really no self to any of it. So there's these two truths in Buddhism. I won't keep going, but and one's not to be held higher than the other. It's not that the ultimate truth is more correct or to be held with more kind of reverence, but they're to be held together and to be recognized together. That there is both a conventional truth in this moment and an ultimate truth, and we can be aware of both without overweighting either one. And it's just like that with internal and external resources. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, one is more important than the other, but I do think that we need to bring awareness to both of them. I think that many of us tend towards one or the other, and that may not ring true for every single person. But myself, and watching Elizabeth, and then watching many of my students with whom I work, and of course running the meditation center in Petaluma, I see that a lot of people tend toward building internal resources or building external resources. There are some people who focus on all the right yoga classes and eating healthy and going to the gym and spending time with their kids, and all great things, and don't really focus on building the internal resources within themselves as much. And I see people that build all the internal resources and study the Dharma so they can really practice and practice and practice, but don't have a community or don't have any other kind of outside resources, or don't listen to Dharma talks, or don't connect with other meditators. And, in this situation, one person's not better than the other, one person's not more progressed along the path than the other. But it is interesting to see what it would look like if we could round that out a little bit, if we could make our path a little bit more whole, in a sense. Elizabeth and I lived in LA and met in LA in 2011, and we had a ton of friends, and we always joked that our house was kind of like Seinfeld. Nobody seemed to ever knock on the door. We'd be hanging out or working, as I worked from home, and someone would just come in the door, one of our friends, because everybody lived on the same block as us. And it was beautiful to have this collection of friends that were relatively healthy people. They were all involved in 12-step or meditation or yoga. They were all kind of this, curious people about growth in some shape, way, or form, regardless of religion or tradition. And then we moved to Northern California, and we really lost that. We had a couple friends that we were really close with, and a couple people from the meditation center that we felt really close to personally. But we really lost that external resource. So what we did, and this is hindsight, is we dove kind of headfirst into building internal resources. We went on more meditation retreats, and we dedicated ourselves to practice. And we found other ways to kind of fill our lives, even with external resources, like hiking or spending time outside. Then when we moved here to Mexico, where we currently live, we had the easiest time meeting people. There's just everybody's so friendly. We've met tons of people, and our lives are full. Even as I'm recording this, we went to a going away party for a friend last night. We're going to dinner tonight with a couple of friends that are visiting town, friends of a friend. And then tomorrow we have somebody coming to town to visit us. And we also are going to do something with a few friends from here. Like, it's just, our lives are so full. And what happened is, with all those kind of external resources and these healthy and helpful people that we look up to and we aspire to kind of learn from, we both stopped dedicating ourselves to internal resources as much. And that's changed, and it ebbs and flows, but we can see sometimes how when we have the opportunity for one or the other, it can kind of be a give and a take. And for that reason, it's good to have both. There may come a time where you have nothing but internal resources available to you. I spent 30 days in jail when I was sober, about 2 years sober, for a past crime that I was going through the step work and making amends, and I had a warrant out, so I drove to another state and turned myself in. And there in jail, I had nothing but internal resources. And I sat and I meditated every day, and it was only 30 days. It was no big deal. It wasn't horrible or anything. But all I had was internal resources. There are also times where we're suffering so greatly that the mindfulness or compassion just aren't super accessible, and we need external resources. We need to be able to pick up the phone and call a mentor or teacher, or we need to be able to go to the gym, or we need to be able to, this or that. So to have them both available, even if we're not utilizing them in one moment. I tend, out of honesty, I tend much towards internal resources. And there's this deep-seated belief in me, and I'm not advocating this, but it's what I notice in my own life, that I can't depend on anyone. And that's not because people are not dependable. It's not because I think that people suck or I've been betrayed so many times or anything. I just know that I can depend on myself. And I have been burned a few times. It's also an ego thing, right? Like when I'm turning to someone else for help, there's some humility in that. So it's easier for me to just focus on internal resources and not have to be vulnerable to anybody else. And I don't think that's necessarily a horrible thing. We all have these tendencies. I used to go to a lot of 12-step recovery where the focus was on building a relationship with a higher power outside ourselves. And I went to what is now Refuge Recovery, but at the time a Buddhist recovery meeting. And a man named Enrique was leading it. And he was reading from the format. And one of the things said, here at the Buddhist recovery meeting, we believe that all beings have the power and potential to free themselves from the suffering of addiction. And I was hooked in right away because I thought, great, I have the power and potential. I don't have to rely on something outside of myself. So I was kind of drawn in by that. But it's easy for us to forget or kind of disregard the other side of resources, to not develop the internal resources or to not give any attention to the external resources. So I encourage you to kind of investigate this for yourself. See if you lean one way or the other. Maybe you're somebody like me who finds themselves leaning really far one way, Or maybe it's very slight, or it's right down the middle. There's no right or wrong answer. But to keep in mind these two pieces, these internal resources and qualities and potential and seeds we have within us, and the power for things outside of ourselves to support our practice and our work toward freedom and less suffering, the people in our lives and the teachings out there and the other ways we can support the mind and body. To me, one of the greatest things about going on retreat is kind of having more control over what I eat. And I don't mean as in I don't have any control over what's being served, but as I get more mindful, I eat a lot more slowly. I begin to tune into when the body's full, and I don't get as tired or kind of slothy after the meals. And it keeps the mind sharper and more alert and more able to access compassion and metta as I'm not kind of grumpy all the time. So there's these external resources like tuning into what we eat that can really support us. So that's all I have. I have one question I want to answer that was sent via It's a funny one because it was sent via email like 2 weeks ago, and then somebody in our Wednesday group asked it a few weeks ago too. So I've been meaning to offer it here. And just a note, there hasn't been a Dharma talk in a while. Life's been crazy. I was really sick for a few weeks and in the hospital and whatnot, and I'm okay. And then on the other hand, for those of you that don't know, Elizabeth is coming up on 5 months pregnant. So that's obviously the baby's not here, but it's already changed our lives quite a bit as we're adjusting to get ready, and her body and mind are going through changes, and she's tired, and I'm doing my best to support her. So life's just been a little bit hectic, but we're back on. We got this beautiful setup that Elizabeth is letting me use and showed me how to use. The question is, every time I meditate, I experience some pain in the body. What do I do? I think this is something I've talked about too many times. I feel like it's such a common question that I hear, and I don't mean too many times as in don't ask the question. I just mean that like it's so common. You're not alone if you're experiencing pain during meditation. And there are a few things I have to say about it without offering a whole talk. One is, if the body's in pain, it may be trying to tell you something, is an absolute possibility. So I always like to remind that we shouldn't sit in a way that, our back's going to break or something. Sometimes if something's falling asleep or there's some pain, there's these Buddhist teachings of like, just sit through it. Just notice it, have compassion, sit through it. On the other hand, modern science tells us that something may be wrong, and it doesn't mean chronically wrong or wrong, but be willing to make an adjustment when you need to. The other thing I'd say, and really the meat of it, is that when you notice pain or discomfort in the body in meditation, there's basically just a few steps you have to take. One is be aware that you're aware of it, really. Oh, look, I'm aware of this pain, and tune into it, see how it feels. So step one is just to bring our attention to the pain in the body. Step two is to rest with it for a few breaths. Just be with it for a little bit before deciding what we need to do. So bring the attention to it, and I'm going down towards my knee because that's what often hurts for me in meditation. Continue to rest with it, and then decide what to do. Maybe the answer is just to be aware of it and notice our reactions and responses, and we can begin to tune into the Vedana and the feeling tone, that unpleasantness, and then the mind's reaction, and we can see this whole process unfolding. Maybe the answer is to switch to compassion practice and offer some phrases of compassion specifically for that body part. And of course, maybe the answer is to really mindfully move and adjust our position. If you do this and you decide to move, you can do so mindfully and not reactively. So really taking the time to move slowly if it's the knee, maybe you need to straighten the legs slowly and feel the release of that discomfort or pain, rather than just kind of, it hurts, and extending the leg and being done with it. Do so mindfully out of care and compassion instead of out of aversion. So that's all I have this week. I'm going to wrap up with one of the things that would be super helpful is whatever you're listening on, whether it's YouTube or Google Play or Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify. I don't know if you can on Spotify. Leave us a review. Reviews help us get seen and help get the word out there. You can always share the podcast on any platform you're on. You can always forward an email. You can visit or share oneminddharma.com/talk for all the information on subscribing. oneminddharma.com/donate to support this podcast and our other podcasts. And of course, if you have any questions, email me at matthew@oneminddharma.com. Matthew has 2 T's. I say that because a lot of people email it to Matthew with 1 T. So Matthew with 2 T's at oneminddharma.com if you have questions or something that you want me to talk about, a Dharma topic or otherwise. I'm always happy to. So with that, thank you, and I will see you all next week.